To reach the peak in her life, Dante became her rival's counterpart. Due to her mother's promotion and inability to take care of her, Dante temporarily moved back to her grandfather's ancestral home. Considering she was staying as a guest, Dante took on the task of cooking. While they were eating dinner, the news reported that a monster had been spotted locally, but it had been repelled by a magical girl. Dante, not very outgoing, stayed with her grandfather for a week. Worried she might get bored, her grandfather took her to the town mall the next day. The rural mall was nothing new to Dante. During their visit, her grandfather received a call from a neighbor who had injured his back and needed a ride to the hospital, so he left to help. At the mall, Dante spotted a plush toy of the bear monster she had seen outside the day before. Not wearing her school uniform, some students wondered if she had dropped out. In fact, she hadn't. Dante's mother was good at her job and often transferred, leading Dante to move frequently and rarely attend a fixed school. Finding a seat, Dante accidentally sat on a cat, which seemed to speak. Just then, the cat's owner, a girl with pink hair, came over. After thanking Dante, she quickly left with her cat. Dante didn't stay long at the mall before taking the bus home. Suddenly, announcements nearby began to play. A magical girl and an evil officer were fighting, tearing down a bridge right in front of Dante. Stunned, she, who normally ignored news about magical girls, felt distant from such events. This was her first time witnessing one up close. The sight of the beautiful magical girl struck a chord in her. She no longer wore the stern expression she used to. Once home, she asked her grandfather if she could stay longer and received her mother's permission. Thus, Dante transferred to a school in this town. The school broadcast reported a monster sighting in the West District, which sparked complaints among the students. But Dante was thrilled. She declined her classmates' invitation to go home together and instead headed to the West District to watch the magical girl. Though she arrived too late and could only watch the broadcasted footage on TV, Dante is now a devoted fan of the local magical girl, Neighbor. Neighbor's adversary is Kuloma, the leader of an evil organization, and his subordinate is Bear Monster. However, Kuloma is underwhelming in battle. Neighbor easily defeats him. Frustrated, Dante mumbles about how such a weak opponent does not do justice to Neighbor's prowess. For an evil force, you should at least put up a spectacular fight. Unfortunately, her rant was overheard clearly by the evil leader Kuloma himself. Oops, did the target of her criticism hear everything? Kuloma didn't return home because he couldn't face his elders after his defeat. However, he listened to Dante's criticism and revealed that he too supported Neighbor, making them allies in fandom. Dante promptly accepted Kuloma's invitation to his fan club. She learned that Kuloma's first act of villainy was at this very coffee shop, where he had flipped the doormat, an admittedly bad act. At that time, Naiburju confronted him, but Kuloma initially got the better of her. Unexpectedly, Naiburju fought back with a powerful punch that changed the dynamics, making Kuloma respect the magical girl's resilience. Dante enjoyed watching the battles, especially the damage sustained by the beautiful fighters. The two quickly found common ground and bonded over their shared interests. Kuloma sighed, acknowledging that although he wanted to showcase Dante's development, she was younger and evolving too quickly for him to keep up. If this continued, the evil forces might disband. Dante pointed out that this was a result of his own actions. But if the evil forces really disappeared, wouldn't her heroine also have to retire? Suddenly, Kuloma raised a finger and said, "Hey, I have a plan!" Dante exclaimed, "What a shock! This man is part of the evil forces. I'm afraid I can't escape now as a hostage." Sure enough, she was captured on the spot, but Kuloma did not intend to take her as a hostage. Instead, he recognized that Dante was quick-witted and exactly the strategist he had been dreaming of. So, he opted to kidnap her instead of trying to persuade her. Kuloma invited Dante to become the strategist for his evil forces. Dante immediately ran away, pretending it was all a bad dream. However, the next day, while shopping for merchandise of her heroine Neighbor, she was shocked to find Kuloma working as a convenience store clerk. Kuloma asked Dante if she had made up her mind. Dante stated she would only support Neighbor and could never join an evil organization. Just then, a robber burst into the store. Coloma, still acting as a store clerk, promised to protect Dante and nervously stepped forward, but both were quickly tied up. Coloma confessed that although he was the leader of the evil forces, he was still afraid of an armed adversary. Dante then realized that Coloma, despite lacking fighting skills, was dangerously persuasive and could incite the robber to commit worse crimes. Dante became even more resolute in her decision not to join Coloma's organization and declared her unwavering support for Neighbor, insisting that if Neighbor were there, she would save her. At that moment, Neighbor, hidden behind a shelf, quietly slipped to the back door to transform. She then quickly subdued the robber with a chokehold. As Dante watched her heroine in action, she nearly fainted. She learned that magical girls are not allowed to use magic on ordinary people, which is why Neighbor had used a chokehold and immediately called the police after subduing the criminal, as magical girls and police have their respective jurisdictions. Coloma tried to tempt Dante into joining the evil organization, arguing that only a strong evil force could battle Neighbor effectively and highlight her prowess. Since Neighbor cannot engage with ordinary people, Dante felt compelled to act on her words. Dante felt that as an ordinary person, she couldn't participate in the conflict between the two sides. She briefly wished she had magic powers, but she quickly dismissed the thought and returned home, only to find Coloma visiting her house, scaring her grandfather and eating her dorayaki. Coloma then took Dante to the Abyss headquarters under the guise of a direct hire from the boss for a tour. Dante insisted she needed to return home to watch her heroine's recorded show. Coloma pouted and played the sympathy card, complaining about how large and empty the base felt as a lonely boss. Dante, who is more receptive to soft tactics than hard ones, eventually agreed to a 1-hour tour. The entire base, being magically constructed, didn't appear on any maps. The first stop was the warehouse, but as soon as they entered, the door got jammed by a falling broom. Dante wasn't initially worried, as Coloma had just teleported them there. However, unexpectedly, the evil organization's magic works like a data plan with a fixed monthly allowance that slows down as it runs out towards the end of the month. The teleportation was Coloma's last bit of magic, used to impress Dante with his power. This meant they couldn't get out. Dante was horrified and tried to call her grandfather to record the TV show, but there was no signal in the underground base. Dante was desperate, as she was missing her heroine's battle scenes. Coloma then began to tempt Dante, suggesting she become an officer in the evil organization so she could directly confront Neighbor. Dante was almost swayed but ultimately refused. Coloma then pulled out a contract, explaining that he had already signed a magic contract and that the only way out was for Dante to sign as well. Eager to watch her show, Dante reluctantly agreed, hinting that she was only signing to obtain magical powers and not actually joining the evil organization. Although she completed the process and obtained the powers, Dante didn't know how to use them. Coloma didn't press her, but simply asked her to try moving the broom blocking the door. Upon asking, Dante learned that her grandfather had come down the front stairs. She quickly realized that the evil organization's base was right beneath her house. Moreover, it was her grandfather who had brought Coloma home after Neighbor had beaten him up, looking like a lost kitten or puppy. So, her grandfather had picked him up and even agreed to let him build a base underground. Just as Dante was about to have a breakdown, Coloma snapped his fingers and teleported them back to the room. Dante finally realized that she had been duped by Coloma. He was not out of magic. He had tricked her into signing a magic contract. Neighbor, who is an ordinary high school girl on most days, feels embarrassed when she sees videos of her battles posted by others. That day, as she was walking in the street, she saw Bear Monster broadcasting crime threats, announcing plans to cause trouble in the park at 3 p.m. Coloma was preparing to take Dante out, but suddenly a tornado started outside. Coloma was unconcerned, but Dante worried that Neighbor might show up, so she ran to the park to check. There, she found a talking cat by Niber's side, which had just been hit by a trash can. Dante helped Niber up, noticing her pleasant scent. She took the unconscious Niber home to rest and kicked Coloma, who was playing chess at the door, inside, warning him not to run out. Then, Dante moved the unconscious Niber to the bedroom, melting at the sight of her idol's face. The cat, Niber's familiar, thanked her. Meanwhile, Coloma caused a commotion nearby. To distract the cat, Dante declared herself a devoted fan of Niber, watching videos of her battles provided by concerned citizens every day. The cat excitedly revealed it was the one filming those videos. Dante was dismayed. While it was good that someone was filming her idol, the cat's filming skills were terrible. Dante believed that magical girls, besides being cute, also possessed powerful magic. The cat thought Dante had great planning skills and suggested they could work together. At that moment, Coloma couldn't sit still any longer. He rushed out and grabbed the business card the cat had given to Dante, thinking he could use it to directly contact Niber and avoid having Bear Monster distribute flyers for the next challenge. The cat, thinking he was up to no good, panicked, picked up Niber, and ran. Coloma just wanted to use the card to contact Niber's directly. After the cat left, it was still puzzled as to why Coloma was at Dante's house. Meanwhile, Dante snuggled into the bed Niber had lain in, feeling utterly fulfilled. The next day, Coloma was full of energy, ready to commit some mischief and ask Dante for ideas. Dante jokingly suggested kidnapping a couple of hostages. Coloma, amused, called her wicked and a future officer of the evil organization. Dante was speechless, while Coloma continued to worry about his capabilities. Just then, the cat arrived to thank Dante for taking care of Niber the day before. Seizing the opportunity, Coloma tried to kidnap the cat but was clumsy. Grandfather passed by thinking they were playing and quietly went into his room. Dante reminded Coloma to call Niber. When he dialed, the cat's phone rang. Seeing Coloma's embarrassment, Dante suggested letting the cat notify Niber. The cat allowed Dante to use its phone to contact Niber, who was preparing breakfast at home. After finally answering, Niber heard the cat confess its mishap. Coloma grabbed the phone, ready to intimidate Niber Harn, but his nervousness caused him to bite his tongue. Before the confrontation even started, it was over, and he handed the responsibility to Dante. Remembering Coloma's desire for an evenly matched battle with Niber, Dante gathered her courage to continue the call. She had prepared what a kidnapper might say, but upon hearing her idol's voice, she was speechless. Eventually, she pretended to be a broadcaster from a lost children's center, saying the cat was now in their care. Dante ended up overwhelmed by the situation. Seeing this, Grandfather untied the cat's ropes. The cat, mistaking Dante for a new evil officer named Dante, acknowledged their bravery in battle. Coloma realized that one should not force oneself to do too much evil. Fortunately, the cat thought Dante was on his side. Dante was completely flustered, wondering whose fault it was. Before being picked up by Grandfather, Coloma had been a wanderer living under a bridge, eating fish he caught from the river and cooked simply. Initially, he was not accustomed to doing evil, but he had come to accept it. While eating, Coloma was suddenly approached by Niber. Embarrassed to admit he was just living under a bridge, they immediately started fighting. This was the bridge battle that Dante witnessed. To Dante, it was a heroic fight. But in reality, Niber's control of magic was imprecise, and she ended up damaging the bridge during the fight. Coloma was devastated because his home was destroyed, but Niber mistook his anguish for cheering and attacked him with a bolt of lightning. A tearful Coloma was then found on the street by Grandfather, and has since lived under Dante's house. Dante resolved to distance herself from Coloma. She had agreed to oppose Niber the day before, purely influenced by the atmosphere. While brushing her teeth in the morning, Dante heard the announcer say that the evil Force Abyss had declared a withdrawal from the city. She was stunned and checked the underground passage only to find that the base was gone. At school, people were discussing the news of the evil force's departure, but no one considered Coloma and his organization a threat. Dante's life returned to normal, but she quickly realized something was amiss. With no evil forces left, what would happen to her idol? Without opponents, Niber's role shifted to a volunteer cleaning up the city. Distraught in the pouring rain, Coloma approached Dante, saying he had wanted to repay the kindness of her grandfather's shelter, but without any officers to strategize, he was no match for Niber. and had to leave the city. Dante was infuriated. She loved magical girls and wanted to see the battle of good magic against evil. If Coloma left, her idol would also return to normal life. To elevate her idol higher, Dante decided to become an evil officer. Neighbor, who was picking up trash everywhere, was also in a bad mood. Although doing good deeds was her duty, the silent disappearance of her old rival made her gloomy. Unexpectedly, Coloma appeared riding Bear Monster and immediately summoned a giant hand made of water magic to fight her, which even contained sea urchins that could injure her if broken. Moreover, Coloma even started forcing her into traps, a tactic she found surprisingly cunning compared to his previous straightforward fighting style. Watching from behind and giving orders, Dante felt a pang of guilt as Coloma sneezed from the waves hitting him. The cat advised Neighbor to take care of Bear Monster first, but Neighbor seemed to be enjoying the fight. Indeed, this was the Neighbor Dante wanted to see. Moved by the scene, Dante cried uncontrollably, no longer able to focus on giving orders. The bear monsters only listened to Dante, and ultimately, Coloma resorted to using candy as a lure. Then they all were electrified by Neighbors. Overwhelmed by emotion, Dante fainted on the spot. Coloma, now accustomed to being electrified, carried her away. He knew Dante did not really want to defeat Neighbor, but he was satisfied that Dante was willing to fight Neighbor for her own desires. Later, Coloma announced his return once more, enduring the pain of electric shocks as he started working again. Since Coloma was working and Dante went to school, the other partners, paralyzed by electricity, couldn't move. So, Bear Monster sought Grandfather for company. Grandfather said he would take him to a Go club, which Bear Monster agreed to, only to find out it was actually a boxing club, just named Go. Seeing Grandfather's muscular build, Bear Monster was stunned and ended up exercising with him. Before becoming a magical girl, Neighbor was a very enthusiastic girl. She found the talking cat on a snowy day, buried under heavy snow. Neighbor was initially startled by the talking cat, but quickly overcame her fear, took the frozen cat home, gave it a warm bath, and fed it milk. Fortunately, the cat was not QB, a notorious creature. Recognizing Neighbor's kindness, the cat decided to enlist her help against the impending evil forces. Hearing that the cat struggled to find a magical girl to assist, Neighbor agreed to help. The next day, she took the cat shopping. They encountered Coloma flipping a rug at a cafe entrance. The cat immediately recognized Coloma, and Neighbor had to transform and fight him on the spot, even choosing her name hurriedly. Coloma emerged from underground and, seeing the overcast weather, decided to make a dramatic entrance with Bear Monster, claiming that appearing with the dark clouds was a villain's must-do. However, it was the end of the month, and his magical powers were being throttled, so he had to ask Grandfather to drive them to the scene. He also transformed Bear Monster into a paper figure to fit in the car, with himself sitting in the back. Eventually, they were caught by the police. However, the police thought he was a special effects actor and even encouraged him, noting it was tough to work in such weather and to stay safe on the road. Dante, inside the car, wanted to laugh, but feared upsetting Coloma, who looked visibly shaken. Just then, a strong wind blew, and the paper bear monster was swept away. Neighbor, passing by and seeing Bear Monster in the air, assumed Coloma was nearby. She ran into an alley to transform and was ready to confront Bear Monster. Coloma couldn't sit still, and although he hadn't reached the city center, Bear Monster had been blown there. He decided to use a wormhole as a backdrop to at least make an appearance, but due to his limited magical power, he didn't make it through, leaving Neighbor waiting for him to show up. Meanwhile, Coloma had gone grocery shopping with Grandfather. At the start of the month, when Coloma's magical power was fully restored, Dante was watching a video of Neighbor. Suddenly, she had a brainwave. Maybe if they took Neighbor's magic wand, she couldn't fight. Coloma thought it was a brilliant idea and immediately rushed out with Dante to create a distraction in the square to attract Neighbor. Dante skeptically wondered if such a minor mischief could really lure out a magical girl. Yet Neighbor quickly arrived at the scene. Dante hid in a corner as Coloma summoned Bear Monster, which circled around Neighbor wildly and snatched her magic wand. An excited Coloma fled with Dante. They hadn't run far before he lost interest in the wand. Dante, holding Neighbor's wand, was thrilled. It was genuine merchandise from her idol. After returning home, Neighbor did something that went against tradition. She opened an online shopping site. Surprisingly, there were magic wands specifically for magical use for sale. The cat felt something was off, but Neighbor insisted on using magic to help everyone, so she needed a functional wand and ended up buying many wands as backups. Meanwhile, Dante made up her mind to return the wand to Neighbor. Although she really wanted to keep her idol's official merchandise, she preferred to face her idol in a proper battle. After all, that's the kind of character Coloma was. So Coloma and Dante went back to the square and used the broadcast system to lure Neighbor over. However, when Neighbor appeared, they were stunned to see her covered in magic wands. Neighbor did not expect Coloma to return the magic wand, so she decided to sell the extra wands she had bought, keeping only one as a backup. A few days later, Coloma, who was recovering at the base, discovered that Dante had brought back a bunch of wands, the very spares that Neighbor had used. Seeing how excited Dante was, Coloma decided not to disturb her and went out for a walk. He then met Neighbor fishing by the river. Neighbor did not recognize him as an evil officer. After being identified as a magical girl by Coloma, Neighbor thought he might watch her battle videos. Reflecting on Dante, Coloma mentioned that indeed, people watch those kinds of shows. Appreciating her fans' support, Neighbor offered the fish she caught to Coloma. Coloma didn't really want the fish, but knowing Dante would be interested, he took it despite his fears. However, at that moment, the cat returned and immediately recognized him. Startled, Coloma quickly teleported away with the fish. Neighborosh was puzzled, wondering why an evil leader would strike up a conversation with her. Recalling that he had her wand and mentioned watching her fight videos. Could he be a fan? Coloma handed the fish to Dante. Considering Dante would be envious of his chat with Neighbor, he eventually did not disclose the origin of the fish. As a child, Coloma never quite knew what he wanted to do in the future. When his teacher asked him to write about his dreams for the future, the class troublemaker told Coloma that his dream was to become the leader of an evil force. Coloma said such things didn't exist, but the troublemaker insisted that evil organizations were real. He mentioned the rumored Daegu technology company, which outwardly seemed like an obscure small business, but was secretly conducting nefarious research to one day take over the world. Thus, the troublemaker said he wanted to join such a company and become its leader. Hearing this, Coloma realized that becoming an evil officer meant people would come after him. So, he decided to become an evil officer as well. Years later, although Coloma has become the leader of an evil organization, he's merely a figurehead with a headquarters above him. Due to poor performance, Coloma is constantly criticized by headquarters and held accountable for his actions. Dante, upon hearing this, thought it was quite normal, since Coloma indeed didn't seem much like a villain. Coloma, upset, ran away in tears. Dante, momentarily concerned, figured he might come back if he got hungry. The next second, a guy in huge armor appeared at her doorstep, claiming to be Osamu, the new commander set to replace Coloma and destined to rule the world. Dante felt uneasy, realizing that this group called Abyss really did have bad people. Putting aside the issue of Coloma being ousted, the thought of Neighbor having to fight such an enemy was far too dangerous. Dante grabbed an umbrella and rushed out, only to find Coloma abandoned in the alley. When Coloma saw Dante, he tried to flee but was caught. Coloma admitted he didn't really fit the image of an evil leader but didn't want to give up on his dream, seeing it as a fantastical career since bad deeds drew attention. However, he no longer had a place in this city. Dante punched Coloma and expressed her wish for him to be the city's leader. Coloma blushed and was instantly revitalized. Just as he ran out, he found that the new leader, Osamu, had already taken over the TV station, attracting significant attention right away. Neighbor transformed decisively and headed to the TV station to fight, with the cat unable to stop her. By the time Neighbor appeared on live TV, she hadn't even finished her opening speech when Osamu captured her. Coloma was shocked at the presence of such evil. Dante couldn't tolerate anyone hurting her idol. Turning around, she found Coloma warming up for action. If the forces of good were gone, then his role as an evil leader would also cease to exist. Thus, Coloma rushed to the entrance of the TV station, where he found the cat as well. The sign at the entrance read, "No small animals or evil forces allowed." Seeing them hesitate, Dante, exasperated, gave them an ultimatum.
そこまでだ。
何やつ。魔法少女。2号だ。
The cat was too embarrassed to look up. While Osamu was distracted, Naibear quickly tried to pull out her magic wand from her head, but fumbled it. The cat leaped to catch the wand and threw it to Kuloma. Unexpectedly, Kuloma tossed the wand aside, and Dante, who was hiding behind, caught it. She immediately broke the restraints on Naibear. However, Osamu took the opportunity to capture Dante. With his magical power limited, Kuloma could only let Naibear fight. But the wand was with Dante. Osamu took the chance to belittle Naibear. Enraged, Dante shouted that criticizing her was one thing, but insulting her hero was unacceptable, triggering her transformation. The equipment around her was destroyed, the broadcast was interrupted, and Dante's fury melted the iron chains and Osamu's invincible gloves. Seizing the moment, Kuloma called the evil president and complained that Osamu had damaged the invincible gloves. "If I can't beat you, I can still snitch." Although Osamu grabbed the phone back, the evil president despises those who don't take care of their equipment and punished Osamu on the spot. Dante was curious about what the punishment entailed. And Kuloma shamelessly claimed, "You don't understand the power of snitching." Naibear asked Kuloma why he helped her. Dante warned him not to reveal his identity. Kuloma admitted he acted for the sake of the most important person to him. Naibear blushed instantly. Then she blasted Kuloma away, but she couldn't help feeling moved. When Naibear first became a magical girl, she and Kuloma had a fight at the harbor, watched by the cat. Being new to the town, the cat was beaten up by the local stray cats. It decided to use the fish it caught to lure the stray cats, but they still didn't trust it. This led to a fight, during which a little white cat from the stray group fell into the water, and the cat jumped in to save it, and almost drowned. This cat was actually Shinshiro, Kuloma's classmate who aspired to be an evil leader. Shinshiro was a standout student in middle school and liked to be in the spotlight, which made him resent Kuloma, who shone even brighter. When Shinshiro learned that Kuloma aimed to become the head of an evil organization, he recalled their childhood conversation. Shinshiro thought his younger self was being too dramatic and decided to publicly ridicule Kuloma's ideas. However, Kuloma was excited and revealed that Shinshiro was the one who had originally inspired his dream. This made the whole class realize that Shinshiro also wanted to be an evil leader, backfiring on him. Shinshiro then swore to ruin Kuloma. Despite his words, they remained friends from school through graduation. Shinshiro even joined Kuloma at a job interview at Daegu Technology. On their way to the interview, they rescued the company's CEO, Baron, who had been swept away by water. By then, Kuloma could already summon the bear monster, which greatly startled Shinshiro. He saw the idea of being an evil organization leader as just a fantasy from a phase of adolescent delusion. While Kuloma openly spoke about becoming a leader of evil forces, Shinshiro was worried about their chances in the interview. Surprisingly, both ended up being hired. Kuloma was performing exceptionally well at work, prompting Shinshiro to feel that he couldn't be outdone. He started to intensely compete with Kuloma. Unexpectedly, one day, Baron called them into a secret room and revealed that it was a secret department called Abyss, which immediately excited them due to its villainous-sounding nature. However, it was actually a department created specifically for studying Kuloma's bear monster. Baron then gave them cards, which they could attach to their foreheads to complete a temporary contract. He informed them that they would decide who would be the leader of the evil forces, but only one could take the position. He suggested they compete by capturing a flag on the beach. Although Shinshiro was no longer as interested in leading an evil organization, he considered Kuloma his arch-enemy and couldn't stand losing to him in any competition. However, the beach was too vast, and they couldn't find the flag. Frustrated with running, Kuloma summoned the bear monster to fly around in search of the flag. Meanwhile, Shinshiro remembered the card, placed it on his forehead, and actually summoned a huge flag. But before he could reach it, the flagpole fell and nearly crushed him. At the crucial moment, Kuloma held up the flagpole, securing his victory and the leadership of the evil forces. Shinshiro felt somewhat relieved, but Kuloma renounced the position. He believed he hadn't truly won by finding the flag. He had acted only to save Shinshiro. This behavior is too just. It's simply not suitable for an evil leader. Shinshiro should be the leader of the evil forces. However, Shinshiro didn't want to hear this. He refused to pick up what others had discarded and didn't want to lose to someone who gave up on their dreams so easily. In a fit of rage, Shinshiro's power burst out uncontrollably, accidentally injuring Kuroma. The scar on Kuroma's face is from that incident. Baron said that Shinshiro couldn't control his emotions and wasn't fit to be a partner in great ventures. The next second, Shinshiro transformed into the form of a cat. Baron explained that the card had special powers. If it caused harm to a defenseless ordinary person, it would trigger an automatic punishment mechanism. Frightened by Baron, Shinshiro ran away. Baron had the medical team take Kuroma away, while Shinshiro, still holding the card, stood stunned. He couldn't let things end like this. Soon after, Shinshiro was rescued from the river by Naiber. He never imagined he would become an ally of justice. Grandpa had to go out because of some urgent matters. Coincidentally, the school arranged a parent-teacher meeting at this time. So, Kuroma had to temporarily pretend to be Dante's uncle. Unexpectedly, Dante's math teacher, Mr. Hu, was quite intimidating. What's more, this man was once married into his wife's family. Indeed, Mr. Hu, the math teacher, was actually Dante's biological father. Kuroma was shocked on the spot. He didn't know how to act around Mr. Hu. Even Dante only found out that her math teacher was her real father during the last parent-teacher meeting, which her grandfather revealed to her. Since her parents had divorced when she was young, she had no memory of her father and was startled when her grandfather told her. Mr. Hu asked Dante if she had been causing trouble for others. Dante guiltily looked away. Although she had joined an evil organization, it didn't mean she was a bad person. To Kuroma's surprise, when Mr. Hu saw how close Dante and Kuroma were, his first reaction was envy. It turned out that Mr. Hu was a fan of Kuroma. During a low point in his life, he found redemption watching videos of Kuroma fighting magical girls. He always felt a kinship with Kuroma, who he thought seemed a bit clumsy. Kuroma was speechless. Was this a mockery? Mr. Hu asked if he could take a photo with them. Kuroma reflected that in terms of being a fan, Dante and her father were quite similar. When Dante returned, she received a magic card from headquarters. Kuroma told Dante that it was a data card that showed how much magic power she could use. He proudly explained that one could check this directly through an app on a smartphone, but Dante's old phone could only use the card. Because a new card suddenly appeared, Dante accidentally took the wrong one when paying at the store. Soon after, a new convenience store clerk noticed her. Dante met a girl who was lost and learned that she had lost her phone. Dante lent her own SIM card to the girl. The girl gave her a warm hug and then stealthily took Dante's magic card. By the time Dante realized and reported to Kuroma, the girl had already infiltrated their base and beaten up Kuroma, criticizing him for being too weak as an evil leader. She declared she would take over the territory and asked Dante to join her in defeating Naiber. Dante refused, stating she was a fan of Naiber. The girl, named Shinya, was caught off guard and immediately prepared to attack both with Dante's card, but was caught by Kuroma. He informed her that using magic against ordinary people would lead to punishment. Startled, Shinya jumped back. Dante decisively freed herself from Kuroma's grasp and retrieved her card from Shinya, telling them both to stop arguing. Shinya turned around only to find her chamberlain had just casually returned, which made her cry and run away. Dante mentioned that Kuroma seemed quite imposing just then. Kuroma responded that all he had left was his imposing presence since his magical power for the month was depleted. The next day, Kuroma accompanied Dante to buy eggs. On the way, they encountered a crying Shinya. Upon inquiring, the chamberlain revealed that Shinya's most cherished doll was lost. Like many daughters of wealthy families whose fathers are often away, Shinya viewed the doll as her father. Just as the chamberlain finished explaining, Kuroma saw a dog running away with the doll. Kuroma was furious, outraged that a mere dog dared to be more mischievous than him. An evil leader. By then, the dog had escaped into the sewer. Kuroma had to summon the bear monster to remove the manhole cover. He successfully retrieved the jellyfish cat doll, but declined Shinya's thanks, claiming he was just doing something bad. Shinya gained a lot of respect for Koloma. After she left, Koloma quickly restored the sewer cover. At that moment, the bear monster handed Dante a flyer advertising a free handshake event with Niber at the park. Dante, worried about low attendance, tried to persuade Koloma to come with her to boost the atmosphere, but he refused. Dante went to the event alone and discovered it was organized by Shinshiro, who wanted to show Nibera that she had support from those around her. However, the event planners had forgotten to notify Nibera, the most important person. Nibera transformed and headed to the park. Upon arriving, Nibera unexpectedly encountered Koloma, who had come because he was worried about Dante. Nibera had always thought Koloma had feelings for her, making her feel somewhat embarrassed. Just as she was about to shake hands with Koloma, it turned into a wrist-locking battle. In the end, Dante didn't manage to shake hands with Nibera, so Koloma extended his own hand, joking that Nibera had twisted his wrist and suggesting Dante make do with him as a consolation for touching her idol. Dante was flabbergasted. One day, Koloma suddenly approached Dante, telling her he had arranged a fight with Nibera. However, Nibera was only available at 4 a.m. the next day. Koloma then asked Dante and her grandfather to wake him up at that time. Dante complained, feeling more like Koloma's mother than a subordinate. Consequently, Dante, her grandfather, and Koloma ended up sleeping on the floor at the base. The two young people fell asleep, but the grandfather woke up first, dug Koloma out of his bedding, fed him breakfast, changed his clothes, and drove him to the park for the fight. Dante felt she wasn't quite fulfilling her role as a subordinate. Upon arriving at the park, they discovered that Nibera had also been brought there by Shinshiro. Both adults decided to pretend they hadn't seen each other that day. Later, Koloma and Nibera scheduled another fight in front of a cafe. Following Dante's plan, Koloma pretended to disappear in front of Nibera, using inner skull transmission to keep her alert, then reappeared behind her to fight. However, to conserve magical power, Koloma actually ran to the location and tripped, getting muddy before seeing Nibera. Not wanting to fight covered in mud, he saw Shinya and her chamberlain nearby, and borrowed Shinya's washing machine. While washing his clothes, he messaged Nibera to find something else to do in the meantime. Just then, the washing machine emitted a red light and completely ruined Koloma's clothes. Fortuitously, the chamberlain was skilled and sewed him an identical jacket, this time with a small bear patch added. Koloma changed into new clothes and continued the fight with Nibera. Because he was standing high, the yellow bear patch was mistaken for a mud stain. Despite his efforts, he was still seen as a villain who didn't care about cleanliness. That evening, Dante wanted to make chicken nuggets, which excited Koloma. However, they were out of the flour needed for frying. Koloma immediately suggested sending Bear Monster to fetch it, but then learned that Bear Monster had run away. Growing up together, Dante wasn't surprised about Bear Monster's departure after hearing what Koloma had done to him. Koloma considered calling Shinshiro to postpone the fight, worried that Nibera might refuse to fight him if he kept canceling. However, finding Bear Monster was something only Koloma could do, but he could teach Dante how to fight. With a snap of his fingers, Koloma transformed Dante. The outfit was custom-made by the Chamberlain. Excited yet anxious about fighting Nibera, Dante encountered her biological father halfway. He clearly aspired to rise in rank and looked every bit the villain. Shocked to see Dante transform, her father realized she was a magical girl. Dante argued that one shouldn't stereotype. A magical girl should be a more powerful and adorable being, a role that only Nibera could fulfill. Dante, emotionally overwhelmed, ran away. Nibera, waiting in the park, saw a massive energy form rushing towards her. Mr. Hu, claiming to be the energy's father, also ran over. She was shocked, exclaiming that bringing a guardian to a fight was against the spirit of martial fairness. However, Dante did not notice Nibera because her magical power had spiraled out of control. Fortunately, Koloma reacted quickly, teleporting to control Dante's magic. But in assisting Dante, Koloma depleted his own magical energy and could no longer continue the fight with Nibera. Encouraged by Dante, Koloma rallied but was then sent flying by Nibera's new move. Koloma vowed to become stronger so that Bear Monster would return. Unexpectedly, Bear Monster had not run away, but had gone to a training session with the grandfather. Koloma had completely misunderstood the note left behind. Later, Koloma and Dante took Bear Monster out, but the creature fell asleep in the car, and didn't get off in time, ending up alone. Bear Monster and the others had always liked the old Coloma, until he suddenly declared his intent to become an evil leader, which made them feel he had changed. However, after Coloma met Dante, they felt that Dante had helped him revert to his old self. This was the Coloma they loved. Coloma ran out of magic power again, and this time it wasn't even the end of the month, so the battle plan had to be postponed. He tried hard to summon Bear Monster but accidentally used too much force and summoned a gigantic bear monster which landed in the city center. Frightened, Coloma quickly sang to calm it down, urging it not to cause any destruction. Dante teased him, saying, "You're an evil leader. A little destruction shouldn't be a problem, right?" Then she realized that wasn't right for her to say something so villainous. Surprisingly, Coloma didn't want to cause destruction but didn't know how to revert Bear Monster to its original size. With no other option, he had to seek help from Naiber. Coloma tried to sound profound, asking Naibara if she was afraid to face such trouble. Shinshiro immediately recognized this as a provocation. Unexpectedly, Naiber took the bait, transformed, and arrived in the city, where she used a spell to enlarge herself. Dante, watching from below, was almost drooling in awe. The transformed Naiber then pummeled the giant bear, turning it back into a plush toy. The news also covered the incident. Naiber wondered if Coloma was testing her, but Shinshiro, who knew Coloma well, suspected it was just a magic mishap. Meanwhile, Naiber was cutting her bangs when Shinshiro suddenly heard a scream. The news of Naiber's battle with Bear Monster had already reached Baron. Recently, Coloma has been taking notes, aiming to become a qualified evil leader. So he started asking people who distribute tissues on the streets for tissues incessantly. Dante was resigned, wondering how much harm such a foolish person could really do. Nonetheless, Naiber responded to his challenge. This time, however, she asked Shinshiro to send a message via computer. When Coloma arrived at the designated square for the duel, he found Naibara still wearing a helmet. This made Coloma nervous as he ate his noodles, because Naiber usually fought with a magic wand, suggesting magical damage. Now, with a helmet and swinging her wand, Coloma worried about physical damage, especially if someone else was impersonating Naiber under that helmet. Coloma summoned Bear Monster to try and remove Naiber's helmet, but she resisted fiercely. Dante was impressed by Naiber's strength. Coloma managed to remove the helmet using a sneaky trick, but before he could see her face clearly, he was slapped away. Dante always warned not to mess with a beautiful girl who had just had a bad haircut. Coloma didn't understand why Naiber wore the helmet, but Dante noticed right away that her bangs were 3 centimeters shorter. That day, Dante discovered that a hero show was scheduled to take place in the square. She was sure the silhouette on the poster was Naiber Ba, so she plastered the base with many posters and planned to attend the show. Coloma, clueless about what a hero show was, decided to join her on his day off. The event attracted a large crowd, and Coloma got separated from Dante. However, the hero that showed up wasn't the Naiber Dante was expecting, but Tomato Hero, a character popular among children and also a hero Naiber admired in her childhood. Naiber, passing by, also witnessed this scene. Coloma was pushed away by a crowd of frantic shoppers. When he finally managed to break free, he saw Dante tied up on stage by someone playing a villain. Thinking Dante was in danger, he rushed to save her but was knocked back by the crowd again. He had to use a teleportation spell to get onto the stage. Naiber thought he was there to disrupt the show. The person playing the villain was so scared that they hid. Dante quickly explained to Coloma that he had misunderstood the situation. Coloma was dismayed, realizing that as a leader of evil forces, he had inadvertently driven away a group of pretend villains. Did that make him a hero's ally? To make matters worse, Tomato Hero couldn't perform because of the confusion. At that moment, Naiber burst onto the stage, and the two exchanged blows like school children in a mock fight. Punch, rebound, and rebound of a rebound. After the smoke cleared, Naiber emerged victorious. Meanwhile, Coloma received a call from the evil president, who wanted to inspect the base immediately. Anxious, Coloma began to remodel the base. Dante, feeling helpless as Coloma smashed a light with his fist, turned on the emergency lights. The base, bathed in green light, looked fittingly villainous. Coloma praised Dante as a genius strategist. Mid-renovation, Dante decided to stack a spiky sofa high up, but it fell, and Koloma twisted his ankle trying to catch her. Just then, Baron called, saying he wouldn't be coming after all since Koloma had injured his foot, and now he was more focused on the magical girl, Neighbor. The sandbags Dante used to stack sofas were put to use, reinforcing the coastline. On such a rainy day, Dante still accompanied Koloma to the park for a duel. Unfortunately, Koloma's boots filled with water, and he had to run back to change them. To avoid the rain, Dante entered a park bunker where she encountered Neighbor. Neighbor invited Dante to sit next to her. Seeing Neighbor soaked, Dante quickly took off her jacket and draped it over her. Grateful, Neighbor pulled out a thermos from her hat, poured Dante a steaming cup of corn soup, and produced some bread and an electric heater. Dante joked, "Did you steal Doraemon's pocket as a hat?" Neighbor saw Dante as a well-behaved child. Recalling their last challenge together where Dante appeared to cry, Neighbor worried that Dante was being coerced into being a strategist. Touched by Neighbor's concern, Dante was determined to make the goddess look even cooler by acting the part of the villain, so she playfully pretended to be a bad boy. Neighbor hadn't yet realized Dante's gender and thought she was being tricked by an evil officer. When Koloma arrived with new shoes and heard that Dante had managed to get warm soup and cake from Neighbor Key, he was impressed, remarking that Dante was even better at being bad than him. After school, while walking home, Dante saw Baron hanging in midair and mistook him for an injured office worker passing by. Thus, she misled the crowd into thinking there was an attack by an evil organization and used magic to cut the parachute, but forgot to catch the office worker. Fortunately, Neighbors appeared in time to save the day. Neighbor did not recognize Dante as the evil strategist, and Baron, who had wanted to get closer to the magical girl, offered to treat them both to desserts. Dante found Baron suspicious but didn't want to miss the opportunity to share a table with Neighbor, so she stayed close to her until she saw Baron's business card and realized he was the CEO of a recently famous tech company. After enjoying the desserts, Neighbor cautioned Dante to be careful on her way back as a new officer had emerged from the evil forces. Dante realized that Neighbor had not recognized her. Just then, Neighbor received a call from Shinshiro, saying he was coming to meet her. Suddenly, Baron informed Dante that the magic cards contained a shielding device preventing Neighbor from recognizing her. Shocked, Dante wondered if this man could be the evil president. When Shinshiro arrived at the scene and saw Baron, he froze. Baron, smiling, told Shinshiro that he had finally found the traitor from the abyss. Everyone at the scene was stunned. At that moment, a reporter rushed up to interview Neighbor. Amid the confusion, Shinshiro and Baron disappeared. Dante relayed the news to Koloma, expressing her concerns about Shinshiro's situation. The reporters, eager to interview the magical girl and the evil organization, arranged a time for a duel, planning to broadcast it live. However, Neighbor, worried because Shinshiro had not returned home and seemed to be involved with the abyss, could not sleep all night. During the duel the next day with Koloma, she seemed distracted and fainted midway. Fortunately, Koloma quickly deployed a smoke bomb. Dante helped Neighbor up and had Koloma open the teleportation circle to send them home, noticing Neighbor's concern for Shinshiro. At that time, Grandpa returned home with a box of seafood, which included Osamu, an evil officer they had tricked, now transformed into a fish. They wanted to ask Osamu for information about Shinshiro, but Osamu had no recollection. Instead, Grandpa mentioned he had encountered Shinshiro on his way home, following a strange person to the station. Dante decided to go to the station to investigate, instructing Koloma to take care of Neighbor. Determined to secure the future of her goddess, Dante headed to the station. There, she spoke to Shinshiro, who was locked in a cage, telling him that Neighbor was waiting for his return. Baron said he had something to discuss with Shinshiro and invited Dante to join them. Dante promptly agreed. Dante boldly followed onto the Shinkansen, unsure of where they were headed. Baron released Shinshiro, and the three shared a bento meal together. After eating, Dante started to feel sleepy and decided to freshen up in the restroom while Baron and Shinshiro continued chatting. Dante was still pondering the structure of the Abyss organization, the nature of their magic and contracts, and why Koloma, despite being an evil leader, seemed so ineffective. She wondered if staying with such an organization was really reliable. Meanwhile, Koloma misunderstood Dante's instruction to take care of Neighbor as a directive to interrogate her for information, hoping to earn Dante's praise. He decided to start by measuring Naiber's height, but she woke up startled from a dream, thinking Koloma was measuring her for a sweater, as she considered him a fan due to his often misleading comments. Just then, Shinshiro unexpectedly called Koloma, and to his surprise, it was Baron on the line. Realizing Dante had gone after Shinshiro, he worried about her safety. Koloma immediately untied Naiberas and prepared to look for Baron with her. He summoned Bear Monster to ask for Dante's direction, but even Bear Monster didn't know. Meanwhile, Baron was pulling Dante to switch trains. Sensing this, Koloma quickly followed and grabbed Baron's hand. Baron, seeing his anxious expression, immediately looked intrigued. Naiber also spotted Shinshiro and rushed to hug it. Baron announced their timely arrival and led the group onto a train, heading to a hot spring town. There, Baron took everyone around and asked Shinshiro if it remembered anything from the past. Naiber was curious about their relationship, and Baron revealed that he was Shinshiro's former boss. Koloma, confused, was quickly distracted by a mouthful of snacks stuffed by Baron. Baron took them to a hotel where they checked in. There, Dante encountered Shinya and the Chamberlain, and shockingly, Shinya called Baron father. Not only that, but Dante's grandfather and father also arrived. Dante was baffled by the situation, but Baron had already assigned their rooms and left happily. Naiber seemed to quickly accept the arrangement, leaving only Dante confused. Shinya approached Dante, asking if she wanted to join him for a bath. While soaking in the hot springs, Koloma was swimming frantically in the neighboring spring. Naiber even helped Dante dry her hair. Dante felt her life was complete. After talking with Baron, he welcomed Shinshiro back to work with the same salary and social security as before, continuing his job as the magical girl's familiar. Baron's reason for inviting them to the hot springs was to provide a benefit for his employees. Dante gave up thinking and fully immersed herself in enjoying the moment, blissfully unaware of the abyss. Soon, she received a call from her mother and told her she was happy staying with her grandfather. That evening, they all played a pillow-throwing game together. Afterwards, Dante's life returned to normal, going to school and occasionally joining Koloma in mischief. Koloma intended to give Dante Naiber's autograph, but found Naiber had included his name as well. With no choice, he burned it to destroy the evidence. Who knew a magical girl's villain could be so surreal? Is it really appropriate to be chased for flipping a carpet and tearing down a bridge?